In this video, we're going to be discussing the different types of marriages in South Africa. In South African law, people can choose between two matrimonial property systems, a marriage in community of property or out of community of property. By the end of this video, you'll be able to distinguish between the different types of marriages and also know the advantages and disadvantages associated with each type. Please note, this is just a general outline. If you require detailed information or specific information, leave a comment below, contact your own attorney, or email me. My email address is listed at the end of this video. Firstly, we're going to be discussing marriage in community of property. If an antenuptial contract is not entered into prior to the marriage is automatically in community of property. This means that all property of which the spouses are owners of at the date of the marriage and which they acquire during their marriage, whether by remuneration, inheritances, gifts, or otherwise, it falls into the communal or joint estate. The joint estate is owned by the spouses in equal, undivided shares. A marriage in community of property results in you sharing your assets as well as your liabilities and debt. The advantages of marriage in community of property: there's no antenuptial contract required. There's automatic half share in the accrual or growth of the spouse's estate. The credit worthiness of each spouse is the same. The assets acquired prior to the marriage form part of the joint estate and are shared equally. There's fair and equal sharing. The disadvantages of this marriage: there's joint liability for liabilities and debt. The spouses are unprotected against the literal liability incurred by the other spouse. They cannot recover damages from each other on the ground of delict. Availability of funds can be a problem on death of a spouse. It's risky if your spouse is a careless spender. You have limited capacity to litigate, and consent of a spouse is required in certain transactions, for example, when purchasing property. Now we discuss marriage out of community of property. For marriage to be out of community of property, the parties need to enter into an antenuptial contract prior to the marriage. There are two types of marriages out of community of property. The first one is out of community of property with the exclusion of the accrual system, and the second one is out of community of property with the inclusion of the accrual system. Firstly, we'll discuss the marriage out of community of property with the exclusion of the accrual system. The accrual system will be specifically excluded in the antenuptial contract. This means that the parties will not share their assets prior to the marriage and will also not share in any of the assets accumulated during the course of the marriage. So this means that what was yours is yours and it will continue to be yours. The advantages of this type of marriage: on insolvency of one of the spouses, the solvent spouse retains their assets, irrespective of the spouse's insolvency. Each spouse retains assets brought into their marriage and acquired during the marriage as exclusive property. There is no sharing. They are totally separate estates. The increase or decrease in the estate only benefits the particular spouse. And the disadvantages of this marriage: there's unfair distribution of assets. There's no sharing in the growth of the spouse's assets. Each spouse retains their own assets and their own accrual. The spouse contributing emotionally or indirectly, but not financially, is normally prejudiced or disadvantaged in this marriage. Now we discussed marriage out of community of property with the inclusion of the accrual system. This means that the spouses will not share the assets they accumulated prior to the marriage, but will share in the growth or accrual of their estates during the course of the marriage. The advantages. The spouses retain and control their own assets. The capacity to dispose the assets is limited, which protects you against a spendthrift spouse. Accrual is determined first at death, before the inheritances or donations. There's equal sharing in accrual of estates during the marriage. Spouses are protected against the spouse's creditors. Accrual cannot be attached by the creditors. They are free to contract with each other. The disadvantages. An antenuptial contract needs to be executed. The right to claim accrual is only at the dissolution of the marriage, either by death or divorce. There's no sharing of estates prior to the marriage, only accrual to both estates during the course of the marriage. Spouses cannot share in each other's creditworthiness. Accrual calculation can be complicated. It's important to keep detailed records, especially of purchases and of contracts entered into. This is a lot of information. I hope it answers some of your questions. Please also leave a comment below if you've got any further information that you want me to deal with. In the next video, I'll discuss the instances where a court may grant a change in your marital regime from in communal property to out of communal property.